Another episode on character voices with a beginner player, and today we're going to continue focusing on the acting portion of things, and specifically the role of your character in a story. So in the last session, I talked about archetypes, character archetypes, right? I recommend watching that before you watch this one. I'll link it in the description. And after watching that, come back here, and then we'll sort of expand on those character archetypes and things like that. And the title of this episode is Thinking Like a Writer. So, I'm someone who's super passionate about writing. It's a blessing and a curse, because I like to write long texts and things like that, and I love writing. I'm super passionate about it, expression of words, and sort of learning about writing, researching writing, understanding. Writers think differently, and it's awesome. It's really awesome. Writers think very differently, and I want to sort of talk about thinking like a writer. And I'm going to begin with a story that is super memorable that was shared by a writer named Corey Mandell, who teaches other writers how to be writers. And I'm also going to sort of talk about how this ties into your character and your character's role in the story, right? So writers, they take super complex life problems and they simplify them to an easy to digest, relatable format. Usually that gives you a sense of a character or a situation that you can relate to, and sort of that character finding a way through that, and that is it's very therapeutic. It's why archetypes, character archetypes, tropes, all those things are so popular. I may not be able to relate to Luke Skywalker, who I may not be able to relate to someone who's flying around in spaceships and trying to destroy the Death Star. I can't relate to that big, crazy sci-fi thing. But what I can relate to is a young man who's had a lot of responsibility put on him that he didn't ask for, that he needs to now sort of lean into rather than run away from. I think every person in their life can somewhat relate to that. That is the chosen one archetype. The archetype is, you get the chosen one. You've been chosen. It's all over media. You see the chosen one archetype everywhere. The chosen one is someone who has had suddenly a ton of responsibility put on their shoulders. You're the one to go face the problem. You're the one who has the potential to go do something about this huge problem. Whether you asked for it or not, the responsibility's there. That's a lot of weight. So, what is the chosen one? The whole journey of that story is almost always the chosen one running from that responsibility, and eventually they turn back and accept it and embrace it. And that's when they go and they face the villain, they face the big bad, and they overcome their story. So thinking like a writer, right, is often taking these complex, super complex life challenges and simplifying them to a very simple essence. And this is a beautiful example of this is from a story called from Corey Mandell. Corey Mandell was telling a story. This is the most memorable writing workshop, writing thing I've ever listened to, ever heard, and it's completely changed the way I talk about writing. I share it to everybody. It's super memorable. So one day, Corey Mandell, and I'm gonna paraphrase this to the best of my memory. So if I get this wrong, I'll link down the actual video down in the description when I can. Corey Mandell, he got a writing gig, writing a script for a movie, and he's out there and he gets to this is like one of his first jobs, super big deal. He needs to get this right, and he goes in, and his boss says, "So what's it really about?" Looking over his script, and Corey Mandell thinks for a moment. He's like, "Well, what do you mean it's about this?" And he's talking about his story, and the guy says, No. What's it really about? And Corey Mandell was like freaking out. He's like, "Oh my gosh, what's he asking? I don't understand. What does this mean? What does he mean? What's it really about? Am I gonna lose my job if I don't have this figured out? I should know this. Oh my gosh. And so the guy, he starts to kind of pick up. The guy keeps asking him, "Well, no, that's not what it's about. What's it really about?" And so he's like, "Well, I think it's about this." And then he says, No, that's not it. And come back when you have what it's really about. So Corey Mandell calls up his friend, who's a writer, and she tells him essentially what he's asking is, what is the core essence of what the story is actually about? usually like 2 or 3 sentences. All of your story, it's built on this little concept. So, Breaking Bad, perfect example. In the pilot episode, Walter White looks right at the camera and he says, chemistry is the substance of change. What is all of Breaking Bad about? It's all about what does it take for a person to change? How do you turn Mr. Rogers into Scarface? That was the tagline of it. But what's it really about is that the essence of change in a person through situations, through circumstance, through all these different things. And it's exploring that idea. Everything in Breaking Bad is about that concept. Very interesting. And Corey Mandel, he shared this really memorable sort of hypothetical example about this. And this goes along the lines of thinking like a writer, right? Taking these complex things, boiling it down to something super simple. Thinking like a writer, right? Okay. Suppose you have a friend, and this guy is, he's super wealthy, super rich or whatever. Or maybe he's not even wealthy. Just through a string of luck, through inheritance, he inherited an entire island, let's say. So he's got, in this island has a beach, it's got a mountain, and it's got a jungle. It's got 3 different places. And he takes you out there. He's like, man, this is my life's dream. I've wanted to build a house on this island. My grandfather had this. It was passed down from generation to generation, and now I get it, and I get to build a house on this island. This is awesome. This is so cool. What do you think? Look at this beach. This is a great spot to put the house, right? There's like crabs all along the beach. There's seagulls. It's beautiful. You can hear the ocean. It's awesome. This is a great spot to build a house. And then he kind of looks over and he says, oh, but look at this mountain. Look at the view. Oh my gosh, this mountain is amazing. I can see the whole island. I can see the beach. I can see the shores. I can see boats off in the distance. This is awesome. This spot is amazing. Look at this scenery. This is so beautiful. And it's way safer than the beach. So if a big wave comes in, my house is going to be safe on this mountain. And then he looks over and he says, but look at this jungle. Bro, this is sick. This is like the spot to build a house. There's monkeys out in the backyard. What an amazing spot to go put a house. This is awesome. Look at this. There's a tree frog on a tree over here. Imagine just walking out your backyard and you see a tree frog over here. So where is this going? Well, the man says, okay, I'm going to build a house. I've got an idea. Whatever input you give, he says, I think I got it. And you come back a couple years later. And he says, hey, I've finished the house. Come check this out. This is awesome. It's done. It's ready. It's a beautiful, beautiful house. You're not going to believe this. This is amazing. I've spent 3 years of my life building this, or I've spent 2 years of my life building this house. 2 years of blood, sweat, and tears, pouring out time and effort and money and energy. And my house is done. Come check it out. And he takes you out to the beach, and you see it's a beautiful, immaculate house when you first look at it. And you're looking at this house, and you see the beautiful woodwork, and it's just amazing. It's gorgeous. It's homely. It's calm. The colors all match. It's decorated, well decorated with all kinds of mementos and small personal things and items. And as you step through the front door, you see the living room completely open to the outside air. It's as if he took a cutout of the house and it's just the living room. That's it. And there's no walls, and it's completely open to the outside air. The plaster's already peeling off the wall in a spot because of the exposure to the air, to the moisture, the sea breeze coming in. And he looks at you and he says, wow, this is awesome, isn't it? I couldn't decide where to build a house. I liked all these spots so much, so here's the living room. And there's the kitchen right there. And then he looks up and he says, but we're not done yet. You got to see this. Look at this. Look at this. This is awesome. And he takes you up to the mountain, and sure enough, there is the master bedroom and the guest room just completely open to the outside air. There's birds making nests in it. And the house is like falling apart in a spot because there's not proper support. And he says, man, this is awesome. I couldn't decide where to build, so I built on the mountain. This is so cool, right? And then he looks at you and he says, but wait, there's more. And he takes you down to the jungle, and sure enough, the same thing. There's a monkey rooting around in the shop, the workspace that he has, his office, throwing books everywhere. There's frogs all over the furniture. It's an absolute mess. A tree has grown into the side of the house already in the year that he's been building it, completely open to the outside air. And it's just, and you sit there and you look at this and you're like, you spent 2 years of your life building this? And he kind of looks down and almost in shame, and he's like, oh man, what have I done? And Corey Mandel brings up the point that is something that as writers we do all the time. And you get this, it's like they say writers, kill your darlings, meaning you've got something that oh man, I just have to include this in the story. I'm so inspired. But it doesn't fit with the core theme of what the story is really about. And so there's so many elements that as a writer, you're thinking, what's this really about? Is this about the Death Star? Or is this about insurmountable odds and having faith in difficult circumstances? Is this really about Darth Vader? Or is this really about longing for your father to be present in your life, who wasn't there? Is this really about Emperor Palpatine? Or is this really about trying to do what's right in a corrupt institution that is bent on doing what's wrong? There's so many things that as writers we think, as a reader we think, man, this is about a man who's a chemistry teacher becoming Scarface, and all of and it's about this circumstance and about this circumstance and about this circumstance. It's really about what will a person do to stay alive, or it's really about what does it take for a person to change, or it's really about this, or it's really about that. So how does this relate to your character? So your character is going on a journey, right? That's the whole point of the story. The story is the journey. Your character's going on a journey. And sort of as a player, as an actor, think, what's this really about? And then we get into like character arcs, right? Where's my character going? Let's say I'm playing a dark elf who has been framing this off of a previous character I made named Sadleg Never Smile. And his whole thing was everywhere he looked in his past, he was people would go after him. It's a funny take on the Menzo Berenzon Legend of Drizzt series. It's sort of a comedic take on that of everywhere he goes, he sees an assassin. He's used to everyone coming after him. He was a wealthy merchant in his hometown. And he embodies the archetype of the cynic, which can be a comedic relief in an ironic way, because the cynic is completely unaware of how dour that they are. He's sitting there in this party, of people celebrating after a successful quest, and he's looking around and, I wonder when the next assassin will come through that open window. How dour their security systems are. And everyone else is having fun, and he's sitting there in the corner, dour, depressed, and sad. And the cynic, his secret need is to sort of break out of this cycle and be proven wrong. His secret need is to almost become an idealist, right? His secret need is in the opposite of his core motivation. All of his core motivations are related to, did I poop on someone's dreams today, right? Did I tell them, you can't do that, that's not going to work, you can't do that? Did I discourage someone? Did I refuse to take risk? And those are my story motivations. So every scene, my characters, just someone else is super excited about something, and my character comes in and just completely slashes that idea, tears it apart. That simply won't work. How dour. Just every scene he's doing that. But as an actor, I'm thinking, I want to display my character's secret need. This is what my character's story is really about. My character's story is going to really be about someone finding optimism in a life that promotes pessimism. My character is going to really be about someone finding joy in a past that is all about just filled with pain, filled with betrayal, filled with hurt. Finding trust when all you've been shown is untrustworthiness, right? So that's what my character is really about. You know, you can pick one of those three. And every scene that I do as an actor, as a player, I'm going to be trying to show that aspect of my character. So this episode is specifically about thinking like a writer, right? Take a complex life challenge, life struggle, simplify it, and show your character exploring that idea and going through that idea. And then taking it a step farther, if you, as a player, you can really help your DM out by figuring out sort of what the DM, maybe the theme that they have in mind for the story, and sort of being a supporting actor at points and pushing the story in that direction. So say we have a story that's about the importance of free speech. Maybe you kind of steer your character in directions that explore that idea. So you initiate a scene with another character or NPC, and you start talking about, you know, something that's going on in the world in your character, but you're exploring this core idea of what's this story really about, right? So this is hopefully this helps you sort of think like a writer in terms of your character and sort of open up your eyes to why should I be doing what I'm doing? What should my character be doing? We talked about that with the archetypes and things like that, but this is another layer to that. Why should my character be doing this? And when you figure out that why, and you're thinking about that, and you're not just thinking about why would your character do this as like, oh, my character's motivation. No, the story's motivation. Why is my character doing this? What does this accomplish in the story? And how does this drive the narrative forward? How does this show the journey of what my character's story is really about? So, sad leg never smile. How am I showing and driving in that session, showing the story of someone who's been shown nothing but betrayal and distrust? How am I showing his journey every session to learning the value of trust? My phone's overheating, so that's the end of this.